I'm going to show you 3 ways to VHify your footage. That means making your modern video look like it was recorded with a Video 8 camcorder or a VHS camcorder or High 8 camcorder. Why would you want to do this? Well, a lot of people are drawn to that VHS look because it feels sort of personal and imperfect. And this look is very much connected to what us Gen Xers argue was the greatest time period in the history of the world, the 1980s and 1990s. I'm going to show you 3 methods. First will be the VCR method without a VHS tape. Second will be that VCR method, but with a VHS tape. And third, I'll show you software that fakes it. So this is how you set up all the equipment. You have to start with your smartphone. In this case, I'm using an iPhone, and I have my video queued up. Next up is this adapter. On one side of the adapter is the lightning port. That plugs into the iPhone in this case. At the other side of the adapter is an HDMI port, and you just need a regular HDMI cable. Plug that in there. The other side of the HDMI cable goes into this device. This is your HDI to RCA device. One side has the HDMI port, so we're plugging that HDMI cable in there. And the other side has the RCA port, and we plugged in our yellow, red, and our white cables into that. So now we've gone from an iPhone lightning port to HDMI. HDMI goes into here, and it comes out as analog. And now the next step is to plug it into the front. In this case, on this machine, the front of the JVC VCR is the inputs, the yellow, white, and red inputs. So now we have the signal going into here. Now we can go ahead and we can record onto this tape if we wanted to do the tape method. But in this case, we are showing you how to do the tapeless method. So if we come around the back, we have those wires coming out of the back of the VCR. This is the output now. This is what you would normally send, let's say, to a television. But instead of sending these to a television, we're going to send it to our capture device, which is over here. There's our ATI 600 capture device. And you can see that we're making the connection between the red, yellow, and white over there. So now the signal is being digitized, redigitized, coming into the computer. And you can see that we have Virtual Dub open and it is ready to go. So what we would do now is we would give this a name. All right, and then we will capture the video. We'll say capture. And now what we're going to do is on the iPhone, we're just going to go ahead and press it to start. And you see it's going to start here in just a moment. And there's the video being captured. The first 2 methods are nearly identical, same adapter, same cables, same capture device. But really the difference is that in one case you're recording onto a VHS tape, and that introduces tape artifacts like tracking lines. It introduces some generational loss, so the video will look a little bit more blurry. Is it worth doing this? Well, you'll look at the comparison soon and you can decide for yourself. So those are the first 2 methods. And when I viewed the videos on my computer, I noticed that they were squished. And after some trial and error, I found that stretching the video horizontally to a width of 132 solved it. Now, depending on what hardware you use, you may need to stretch the video to a different amount. Now, the next part I'm about to tell you hurts my brain a little bit, but here's what I think I figured out. And if someone smarter than me can explain it better, please jump in the comments. All right, here goes. An iPhone 14 has an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9, which is wider than 16 by 9. But I wonder if that extra black space on the sides represents that extra wideness. So maybe we should consider that the video output from an iPhone 14 is really 16 by 9. Anyway, the first adapter in this chain says on the box that it outputs at 1920 by 1080. So by the time it changes to an HDMI signal, I guess it's 1920 by 1080 if it wasn't already. And then there's the HDMI to RCA adapter, and that seems to take the 16 by 9 video and it changes it to an aspect ratio of 4 by 3 by squishing the video image. Anyway, that seems to be what's happening. But it can be fixed in Adobe Premiere or the free software DaVinci Resolve. Anyway, if your brain still works after all that, then now is the time to click like. Now, if you don't want to mess around with VCRs and cables and capture cards and making those adjustments in Adobe Premiere for squished videos, well, there's a much easier way. All you need is the free software called NTSC-RS. It's open source. The link's in the description. And this is their cool project website. I love this image. This is what the settings page looks like in the software. Anyways, as I said, the software is free and it takes an existing video and it simulates the NTSC analog signal degradation. It's got a lot of options, as you can see. After some testing, the two most important ones, I think, from my perspective, were the field type, which I set to interleaved, and the low-pass filter, which I set to constant K blurry. This helped the resulting video look more like the ones that I passed through my VCR. A 10-minute video took about 30 minutes to render on my system in this software. And by the way, if you are interested, I saved the settings as a JSON file, and I put that JSON file in my Google Drive, and you can find a link in the description. Okay, let's compare these videos. First is the iPhone 14. This is the VCR tapeless method. This is the VCR tape method. And this is the NTSC-RS software. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that the colors are muted in that VHS tapeless method. And when you do VCR plus tape method, it makes everything a bit more yellow. Sort of adds a pattern on top and makes things even more blurry. And on the NTSC-RS version, it has slightly more reddish hue. All right, let's look at a still frame from these four comparisons side by side. The VCR tapeless method is second from the left, and you can see that the text on the labels of this candy is clearer than the VCR plus tape method next to it. I'll let the rest of these scenes play out so you can see which you prefer. All right, to get another look at these comparisons, I'm going to run this again, but this time I'm going to put them side by side. All right, let's look at the time and the cost of each method. For the VCR tapeless method, everything is done in real time. So if you have a 10-minute video, you're capturing it in real time. That's how long it's going to take. If you have the VCR plus tape method, well, you're just going to have to double that because you're going to record the video onto a VHS tape, and then you have to play back the tape into your capture card. So a 10-minute video is going to take you 20 minutes to produce. A 10-minute video in NTSC-RS took 30 minutes on my system. Your results obviously will vary depending on your CPU and maybe your GPU. Now, in terms of the cost for the first two methods, I'm going to assume that you have a smartphone from which you can play back videos, whether they were videos recorded on the smartphone or videos that you've maybe moved into Google Photos or iCloud or whatever to play back. The cost of that Lightning to HDMI adapter was about $15 US. The cost of the HDMI to RCA adapter that I used was $30, but you can find some for less. Just make sure that you get the HDMI to RCA and not the RCA to HDMI. As for the VCR, any brand will do. You should probably be able to find one at your local thrift store for about $10. And you probably won't need a remote, depending on the model. If you go with the VHS tape method, you'll need at least one VHS tape. But I often find sealed VHS tapes at the thrift store for a few dollars, so that shouldn't be a problem. If you don't already have a capture device, well, you can get those for pretty cheap too. Now, I would never recommend the cheap ones for digitizing real VHS home movies. But in this case, if you're trying to make your video look worse, and this is the only thing you're going to use it for, then I guess one of those cheap $10 or $20 capture devices will work fine. So bottom line, for the first two methods, it's about $60 to $70, I would estimate. And if you do the NTSC-RS method, then everything's free. Okay, so what's my recommendation? Well, I have to say I was really impressed by the NTSC-RS app. There are a lot of settings to mess around with. And in today's comparison, I specifically tried to make it look like my VCR version. But there might be times where you want to add waviness to the video to make it look really bad for some special effect you're going for. And some viewers, frankly, they may think that it looks more authentic than using an actual VCR. Now, if it was something important to me, I think I would prefer the workflow of a real VCR, perhaps for no other reason than I would know that it was the real deal. Although it's important to mention that even after running, modern iPhone footage through a VCR, it probably still doesn't quite look like it came from an old camcorder. And that's because modern smartphone cameras, especially iPhones, have better sensors that automatically adjust the white balance and the exposure and the HDR and the contrast to make everything look really good and clean and vibrant, and more vibrant than a Video 8 camcorder was ever capable of. They weren't just lower resolution, right, cameras. They were worse in practically every category. So what I'm getting at is that even though we can downgrade the resolution and maybe add some VHS artifacts, it's not quite mimicking a real Video 8 consumer level camcorder. I mean, maybe if there was like a higher end prosumer or professional Video 8 camcorder that was used at the time, maybe that's what it's mimicking, because those probably had better dynamic range and clarity and so on. Anyway, thanks for watching to the end of the video. And now here is the joke at the end of the video. Why did David Bowie's VCR always flash 12? Because although time may change him, he can't change time.